Okay, thanks. One thing I noticed, Jim Garrison may not be involved in the meeting. I don't know if he received an email or not with the invitation. And I'll try to see if I can bring him in by telephone. But in any event, this is a Webex meeting. We are here to present a report and have a discussion about what the Bylaws Committee has done so far. And we also would like to form a governance committee, have the Bylaws Committee segue into a governance committee. And the governance committee will be looking at the election of officers, at the standing rules, at the changes to the bylaws, and the way that the community council, as we're forming it now, will be different primarily from the old community council, is that we're making the rules of order easier so that we can encourage participation by more people, and so that people will not be using Robert's Rules of Order as a weapon. And we're also trying to make the community council more inclusive, because those were the two biggest concerns I think that people had about the community council, is that they felt shut down by these bureaucrats who had these arcane rules memorized, and they felt that it was a small group of liberals that wasn't open to the whole community. So there are a few things that we're going to be doing in the bylaws to address those issues. And so I'd like to ask Diane Emerson to give a report on on what we've done in the Bylaws Committee to make those changes.
Okay, hi everybody. Just to let you know, here are the names of the people who are on the Bylaws Committee. David Vogel, myself, Diane Emerson, Jim Deers, Deborah Twersky, Jim Garrison, Joe Labrum, Kyle Britz, Melvin Mackey, Ella Yarkin, Jeff Dunnicliff, Ryan Maloney, and JP Ouellette. And we had 3 meetings, and the April 3rd version of the proposed bylaws is the current proposed bylaws. And it is, if you haven't seen a copy, you can take a look at it at www.vmicc.net. I will go ahead and type in that address here on the chat. So if you wish, you can now or later, you can pull it up and take a look at it. I would like to I'm hoping people have taken a look at it. I imagine there are some people who haven't taken a good look at the bylaws. So we've had a lot of discussion and we've had feedback. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share with you these proposed bylaws right now. See these bylaws, I expect. Can anyone tell me if they're seeing it okay? Yes, all right, very good. So we'll just go through this very quickly. You have the name and the purpose to address important island issues. Membership, all island residents are members, but only those members 16 years of age and older may vote. And it doesn't discriminate. We'll take a look at the meetings are open to all members and interested visitors. Minutes, etc. is typical. The quorum requirement is 25 members. And I'm hearing some background noise. If someone could mute their microphone or mute it for them, that would be helpful. Is not allowed. Members must be present or participate by telecommunication in order to vote. So you can't ask someone to vote behalf. So no one gets 2 votes, for example. Like I'm going to vote for myself and I'm also going to vote for this other person who couldn't make the meeting. So we take a look at there's some particular on Article 4, Section 5. Let's take a look. Oh, that's the proxy voting. Article 5, Section 4 is an interesting one too. So the Community Council Board shall consist of 11 members. And it may, and that's will also depend, that will enable us to have representation from a lot of different groups on the island. And Article 4, Section 5, the duties of the board are to set agendas for the meetings, implement decisions, facilitate communication between the community, government, corporate, and other entities. And a key here is engaging in two-way communication with their specific constituency and other island residents in between regular meetings. So the idea here is that the board members, all the board members, would be helping to participate and communicate with different groups. That each board position will serve as a liaison to associations and individuals connected with one of the following sectors, which will be decided by the governance committee. Could be art, music, and culture, the business person, someone making sure that they liaison with education, environment, the faith community, safety, primarily the NEROs, social services, Latinx community, youth community, things like that. And the governance, and each person who is going to be elected would be the best person for liaison with those different groups. And that is one way that we can work to have a much more input from the different communities on the island. The better we can do at making sure we are hearing from all the different groups, the more King County will listen to what we have to say and our recommendations, and the more we will be representing as many people on the island as possible. And that's really important. All of us who are pulling this thing together. And moving along, we also have, okay, Section 5. So those were the key things about the proposed bylaws. And we have, and then the people who are elected on the board would then choose, elect among themselves, who the officers would be. The board shall elect the officers from among its members. And it would be your typical president, vice president, clerk, secretary, and treasurer. The committees will be set forth in the standing rules, because these committees will move over time. And so rather than have them in the bylaws, which is difficult to change, we put them in the standing rules, which is a little bit easier to change. So as committees are required to come up with new committees, et cetera, we can do that more easily. So that's some of the thinking behind the bylaws. And I been asking for feedback. We've been asking for feedback and ideas on the bylaws. And I have a collection of feedback on these bylaws. But I think rather than go over all of that right now, because we're not going to be, voting on this, I think now would be a good time to open it up for questions and comments about the bylaws. Double check this here. So it's important to, and I'm going to just leave these bylaws up here in case someone has a particular section they want to look at. And in the chat, let's see, I want to see if I can see the chat, or Ella, if you can
And yes, to ask a question, simply type out chat or question rather. You don't have to state what your question is. We'll then call on you to turn on your microphone and ask it.
So, Bob, want to turn on your microphone?
Hi, can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Yes.
I guess my question or suggestion is if you mentioned something about the member being a liaison to all these community entities in Vashon, perhaps that should be also the word liaison should be included in the duties of a board member because it doesn't say anything. It says facilitate. So go back to what is board member? What do they really? I can't see. I'm sorry, I can't see the bylaws now, so I don't know what happened.
I have two screens, and I was hoping to be able to use both my screens, but it looks like I could only use one. So, but they're back again. So I put them up there, and we're talking about what is the purpose of the duties of the board? Is that what you were talking about? Facilitate communication?
What you described, and you use the word liaison between communities and other entities in Vashon. Is that the same as facilitate communication between community and government?
Yes. Yes. That's my understanding.
Well, to a least, I don't know, maybe.
Or this is engage in two-way communications with their specific constituency and other island residents in between regular meetings.
Yeah.
If I could address that, I think there is some concern that that board members not go out on their own and act as representatives of the island to the members of government, which might be what liaison is typically referring to, but more to facilitate communication as opposed to acting as the representative. What we're trying to do is get the community's voice and communicate that, but I think there is some concern that this is not really a representative government, it's a participatory government. And so it's not as if the board members have special duties to act as representatives to the government. It's more that they're going to facilitate communication so that the government can figure out what the community itself is saying. Does that make sense?
No, that makes that. I was just a little bit when Diane said that pretty much the board member is a liaison.
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful about that word liaison because it has its own meanings that sometimes are bigger than what we intend. Okay. Are there other questions?
Yeah.
Excuse me? Okay. Take some time to read over it and look at it and see if there are things that raise questions for you.
And Ella, do you have another person who wishes to speak to this?
Yeah, it looks like Steve Bergman.
Okay.
You want to turn on your microphone?
Hello, thanks very much, Diane, for going through that. I'm really concerned about the minimum number of people that can vote, needed to vote for any particular issue. And I would hope that we'd be able to get a lot more broader input from the community than just those that are showing up at a meeting, whether it's in person or by telecon. Is there any way that we can manipulate the system to get more participation and at least get the true voice of the community?
Steve, if I can address that, I've been on the island now off and on, but since the 80s, early 80s, and probably the most important issue I've ever seen addressed on the island was when the transportation, the state transportation wanted to build a bridge to the island. And it was back, I believe, in the early 90s. And we had a community meeting to address that. And even this, huge issue, it pulled 2,000 people to the meeting, which was amazing. But when you think about bringing in 5,000 people or 2,000 people as a quorum, that will never happen in any group. But what we had in the past was we'd have community council meetings with a 25-member quorum, and that doesn't seem as if it's representative of the island. But what we found over the years was that the people who really feel strongly about issues do go to the meetings. And in this case, we're opening it up a lot more by allowing participation by telecommunication so that people can sit at home and still participate. But as a town hall forum since the 1600s in this country, if you want to have your voice heard, you participate. So,
Right. I totally understand and agree with that perspective, but the minimum number that you're talking about is not at all representative of our island, and that's even just because someone's participating by being present doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of other people that are interested and need to share their voice. And so I'm not saying the minimum number be present at the meeting, but to be able to vote. We just need a different mechanism for voting on issues so the population can really be represented.
So Steve, I would like to say something. I'm not muted, am I?
no.
Okay. We're going to look into voting on issues on the website. If that's possible, that would, and if everybody wants to do it that way, and it's possible, I think that would certainly enable far more voting, far more people voting on an issue if they're able to vote on the issue. What do you think about that, Steve?
I'm fine with that. I mean, just look at the way we vote in our regular elections with King County and the government. We all have a voice, and not everyone participates in that system, but at least you get more of the population that does. When everybody can actually vote. And so, yeah, I think that'd be a great solution, whether it's on the web or some other mechanism. I'm not sure a mail-in type thing is probably untenable, but
untenable and extremely expensive.
some other system.
Steve?
I just wanted to comment that this is Deb Twersky, and I was part of the Bylaws committee. I don't know if people can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, but I feel like the group has done everything they can. I'm really pleased to see the inclusion of the idea of telephonic participation at a meeting. I felt really strongly, having worked for an agency that was a part of King County for 20 years. I know, and working with all of the unincorporated area councils throughout King County, every time there'd be a vote or when things are happening, there's always that question, as you brought up, Steve. Is this just people who are a hot button over this one issue in the community? Do we listen to this or do we not? And the staff of King County and the volunteers and representatives have to take into consideration the fact that there are 20 people or 10 people or however many there are, trying to make a decision on something that affects 10,000 people, right, on this island. So I think that the group that David and Diane and the others have tried to figure out a way to make the regular meetings and business of the council function on a day-to-day basis, and still try to include more people by having members of the board try and act as liaisons, and taking that seriously, and by inclusion of telephonic stuff. I totally agree with Diane, who has done a tremendous and many hours of work, as all these folks have, but as volunteers. I agree with her that looking into web participation is great, because our ability to do these kinds of things is changing by the minute, right, at this particular time. And the county bears some responsibility and may end up supporting that for its unincorporated area councils, because all of them face this issue. So I just think the bylaws have come a long way, and I want to applaud everybody's work and say that we should move forward.
And may I address Steve's question again? Steve, are you there?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
The idea of comparing this to a general vote, is not fair, because we have almost a civic duty to vote, and our participation in votes with King County feels like an obligation. I don't think anyone feels that way about whether or not they participate at the community council, except a really small few. So you will never get the kind of participation in a community council meeting that you will get in a general election. On the other hand, the fact that we have subcommittees that will be addressing these issues openly for a period of a month between votes allows a lot of input, even if it doesn't mean that someone is present at the vote. It will be advertised to the community. If anyone in the community is interested in the issue, they are welcome to participate, and they're welcome to come for a vote. But we're trying to make it as inclusive as possible. And there's something we don't want to lose in the process, and that is the people who vote should be people who have heard the give and take on issues, people who have heard the debate on an issue, not people who come in completely uninformed. I mean, for God's sake, 43% of the American public is saying that Donald Trump is doing a good job with COVID, So that's millions of people, but they're uninformed. And so we want the people who vote in the community council to be more informed.
Well, I think it's easy to inform people by making information available
Sure.
to the masses, and so they can be informed even if they're not able to attend a meeting. But I do believe that we need a way, and I'm not sure that a group of 11 that represent different are truly representing the entire island. I think there's going to be gaps, and
Well,
so
11
I'm
people-
concerned that we're not.
Yeah, 11 people can't vote on anything at the community council. In order to have a vote, you need at least 25.
No, the 11 are the council members or the board members who are representing different sectors, arts and environment and schools and the different groups. But
You know,
when you add them all up, that doesn't make the whole island. I'm
they're
just
not
concerned with missing
even right, and they're not even representing them. We are not moving to a representative government with the board. The board is acting to communicate with these groups, is acting to bring them into the community council, but they do not purport to be their representatives.
They're being their voice. They're funneling their knowledge and feelings and ideas and perspectives, right? That's sort of what you described as being a liaison to the community.
But I think that's the problem with the word liaison, is that it shouldn't be that inclusive. It's not a representative concept. What it is a opening up communication as opposed to being their representative. If a group wants to express its opinions, they can ask someone on the board to express the opinion, but it's not as if that board member is going to cast a vote for them.
Right, but they're funneling information. They're going out and they're communicating and they're getting the pulse of the mat that sector, right?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
Diane.
that's what we hope. That is what we hope.
And
add a couple of comments if I can.
Sure.
This is Melvin Mackey. I was part of the ad hoc bylaws committee, which were 12 people. And on our last meeting, we approved this set of bylaws by 4 yeses and 1 no. And I was one of the no's. And it's particularly for the same reason, is that I have a problem with the 25 quorum, because even in the national level, people are working really hard to take our democracy back from the 1%, and the 25 quorum is 1/4 of 1%. So that's not even as good as what we're doing nationally. And as far as trying to get more people involved by using a website, right now, if a person wants to register to vote in local and national elections, you can go online from King County and register online. And we could certainly set up a website on Vashon-Maury Community Council that would allow people to register as voters. And we could get a lot more than, I mean, I think we could, instead of 25 turning out or 100, I think we could probably get 1,000. And if I were King County and I were looking at 2 choices, I had a vote from a physical meeting of the Vashon-Maury Community Council, where the vote was 96% for an issue because it was 24 yeses and 1 no's. And I also had a poll from the website that was only 40% yeses, 400 yeses and 600 no's. I know that I would probably give a lot more weight to that vote of 400 to 600 than I would to the 24 to 1. So
very well put. I totally agree with what you said, Melvin. Thank you for that.
And so I'm at this point, I'm opposed to the current bylaws because I think we can do a lot better. I appreciate the hard work everybody's done, but I don't think we've made it yet. I think, and I think the foundation of an organization is built on its bylaws. And once you start with bylaws, if you don't really like them that well, it's really hard to change things.
Well,
I think we need to put in more effort to come up with something that people think will actually work. So that's probably all I need to say. Thanks.
okay, Melvin, and I appreciate the work that you've done, in trying to expand the membership of the community council. It's not an easy thing to accomplish, and the other thing is that when you do have voting on a website, you don't have participation. You don't have people who actually heard the debate. It would be as if people in the Congress could vote on an issue without attending the debate. It's just, you don't just come for the vote.
There are two ways you can do that. One is to record the meetings so that people can listen to them if they want to from their computer. And the other way is to have pros and cons on each issue on the website.
Okay.
You know, you can add a lot of information on the website.
I saw that Bong had a question.
Okay, hold on. Jim has been waiting to
Oh, okay.
add some information. Go ahead, Jim. Mr. Dyers.
I'd like to jump in here.
It wasn't.
Hold on, Jim, you're on.
Yeah, the idea wasn't for board members to be representative, but rather to be mobilizers, to really help get people engaged, to get them to come out to the meetings. But it's also about more than voting. You know, votes don't mean that much. You can have a petition, that doesn't mean much. What it means, if people really care and are going to keep after the issue. For example, if we work on the ferries, that isn't going to be a one vote. That's going to be an ongoing campaign that we need people active in. Not just in coming to a meeting, but actually having forums with the ferry people, with state legislators, and we need lots of people involved in that. We might want to work on issues about how to create a more sustainable local economy, and that isn't a yes or no vote. That's a campaign that we work on together as a community. So this is really about maximizing participation in all kinds of ways, and if we can find more ways to get people involved in the voting part, I think that'd be great, but I hope we don't see this as just an organization that votes and goes home.
Well put, Jim.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a comment.
Okay.
This is Art Chippendale.
Mhm.
Regarding participation, I don't see much value in the long term of having members of the council going out and talking to various constituencies, issue-oriented constituencies, and then bringing back information from them. I would see some value in having them go out and begin to enlist them in participating in the council. And that if they wanted at some point to elect their own representatives to come to the council and speak on behalf of their organization, that would make sense to me. But I feel like we're still missing out on the number of people in general who, if we are going to take a vote on, let's say it's something important, like, you know, what kind of economic initiatives do we want to have in the island, and people come up with ideas about those. Unless we have a great deal of participation from the public, as well as from those who have an interest, a specific interest in that, we're not doing a service. So I think we need to rethink all of that in terms of where it's coming from. And I think I could see this as sort of a blend of participatory and as well as representative democracy here. I don't think that, I don't see it working simply as participatory, because it's hard enough to get people to participate. They have to feel as though they have a stake in it. And that's why we have to go out to the constituencies and or have them come to us. That's all I got.
Bong? Is Bong's microphone on? Yeah.
It's on now. Hey, great discussions, guys. I believe that both participation and engagement go hand in hand, especially in this type of a concept of organization. As far as participation, we should not try to relegate ourselves to those regular meetings where people come out. The meetings. I agree with Melvin. I mean, record it. Maybe Facebook Live is free, and allow folks to make their comments right there. I mean, that's one way of doing it. So you'd be surprised the number of folks who don't attend meetings, but they will participate in Facebook Live. So just a suggestion.
I'd like to make a point here. I've been trying. Apparently, the raise your hand feature of Webex is not working. I've had a hand raised for quite a while, and nobody seems to respond to it. But at any rate, I'd like to point out that we are right now participating via the web. That's what we're doing in this meeting. And I would like to suggest that one way to resolve this issue is that we have some sort of a combination of both an in-person meeting once we go back to in-person meetings, and continue to use something like Webex or Zoom or whatever to have people be able to participate in meetings without actually being there. So why don't we just do a combination of keeping this going even when we're going back to real meetings?
Dan, I believe that's the plan in the bylaws, that we will be doing this, keeping the WebEx component or the Zoom component to the meetings so that we can have both.
That's actually not stated in these bylaws as far as I can tell.
If you look at, it is in Article 4, Section 5, it says proxy voting is not allowed. Members must be present or participate by telecommunication.
I see.
Okay. And it's not spelled out in big, large letters, but that was the intent.
Okay, and then I think it should be spelled out in large letters that that
Okay.
is how people would do that, and that might go a long way toward resolving the issue.
Good point.
Does Cheryl Lubbert want to turn on your mic and speak?
Yeah, it's on, and it's Lubert, just so you know. So a couple things from my experiences actually doing a lot of legislative work on the ferry system issue, trying to get the most recent schedule changed so that actually it would be okay for commuters and also not impact our businesses, as well as the winery legislation, which we had to deal with as a consequence of behavior of wineries in Woodinville, an unincorporated King outside of Woodinville. My observation and also my understanding is it took months for people to be educated about the situations, and then also to be able to have a voice, and for us to work with our different state representatives to understand what was happening, and then to get changes made to benefit Vashon. In some cases, not in all. Ferry, we tried. But so when I hear 1 month, I'm concerned. 1 month doesn't feel like enough time to gather information, to communicate information, and then to gather feedback on that information. So I would love to suggest that the time period be longer. I also have a concern about making sure we're representing not just the people who are full-time residents here on the island, but people who own property and are part-time residents on the island. You know, that significantly changes our population. And if we are going to be looking at things that impact art, music, culture, business, environment, faith, safety, social security, social services, schools, youth, I think we need to take into consideration the broader population. And I was kind of curious as to how we're addressing that here from looking at sort of that bigger, broader view. And then my third question, if somebody wants to answer, is how does the council plan to have these activities funded? I think a website with voting capability is a fantastic idea. I think recording the meetings and placing those online for people to listen to are great, but all of that takes staff time and money in order to get that paid for. So I just wanted to open that up for a comment.
David, would you like to address any of those questions?
Yeah, Cheryl, the 1 month time frame you're talking about is not actually 1 month. An issue will be brought to the council, it will be discussed, and then a motion can be made to refer it to committee for discussion. Now, if the committee discusses the issue and after 1 month does not feel it's ready to bring it back for a vote, then they just continue the discussion. there's nothing that says it has to be voted on the following month if the committee is not ready. And if the committee brings it back to the general counsel and the council says, you know, we need more time to study it, then it's studied more. So it's not a firm, you have 1 month to discuss this issue and then it's done. I don't know that it's going to be easy to include off-island property owners as part of a community council like this. I know that that has been thought about before and it has never been considered a workable option.
David, can I just ask a question about that?
Sure.
I know the community council has not been in one for years. And I guess my question is we have better, newer technology. We have better ways of communicating now. Is there maybe a way that we could get some of those people involved? I'm just concerned about, I am concerned about the timing, and I hear you loud and clear about 1 month and then they go to committee. But I do think that we need to give enough time for people to become aware of what the issues are and then be able to schedule time to participate. I know I commute off island to work, and participation in meetings is very difficult. It'll be easier with obviously with Webex or Zoom or whatever. But if I'm not aware of it and it's not on my calendar, I may not be able to participate it, and then I miss it for a month, and then it's gone to committee. And I just want to make sure that we're representing people appropriately.
Okay. No, and good concern. This is not a perfect forum. I don't think anything that you can come up with is going to be addressing all of the issues. We do, what we can. Now, the community council was very active from the mid-70s up until the year 2010, at which time it disbanded. And so we had 40 years of it being an effective advocate for issues on the island. And, it may not be perfect, but it's pretty darn good. And if you accomplish enough as an organization, you gain credibility. And the community council accomplished a lot of things during that period of time. And when we had zoning issues, like the town plan was done by the community council. Now, that wasn't done in one meeting. It was an issue that required a lot of study and a lot of participation. So you use everything available to you to get the word out to the community. But there is no way that you're going to get absentee landowners involved in these issues. I know I own some land in Elma. Does that mean that I ever want to participate in Elma Community Council? No. And I don't think that many people who are absentee landowners who have a piece of property that sat on the island for 40 years without doing anything really take part.
And David, I'm not talking about people who own property. I'm talking about people who own homes, who live here about half the year. So just so I clarify my perspective on that, I'm talking about people who come here for extended periods of time to live during, maybe it's the summer months for 6 months. I know quite a few people who are actually transitioning from Seattle to here in that fashion. So I'm not talking about landowners. I mean, I live next to 80 acres that no one has done anything with for, it seems like forever. That wasn't my point. And I guess what I was recommending is also on the timing, that to extend the timing beyond what you're saying. One of the things that I was actually very pleased with is it related to the winery ordinance and the council that voted on that for King County, was that it actually took a long enough time that we were able to get involved and we were able to actually state our case for Vashon. If the time period had been shorter, we would not have been made aware of the fact that we were being basically swept in with a situation that had nothing to do with Vashon. And we would not have been able to go to the county council meeting. We would would not have been able to state our case. And in fact, we would not have been able to get McDermott to really represent us and get the legislation changed. So what I'm recommending is that we consider a longer time period so that we can allow people who have a vested interest in whatever is being discussed to have a chance to have a say, and to get involved and to get a quorum together to represent themselves. That was my perspective on 1 month.
Okay, I think that's good. And I think that can be done on a case-by-case basis. When you have an issue that's a big issue, it needs more time. When it affects more people, it needs more time. And often it will get more time. Over the years, these issues have gotten a lot of time. They haven't been pushed through by the community council. And you'd get resistance to it being pushed through in the council. So I think there's concern for that. But when you have little issues that just need to be addressed in a timely fashion, giving more than that amount of time for them is inefficient.
For the sake of time, can we move on to Dom Jove 1984, whoever that is?
Yeah, sure.
Are you there, Dom Jove 1984?
Dominic?
Okay, I see the name, but I don't see any microphone or camera.
Okay, maybe Mac.
He says he can't talk.
Oh.
And a chat that says he can't talk.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I would say, we got 3 minutes left. So I would like to wrap it up if possible.
I did want to address the governance committee and what we need to do with the governance committee. The governance committee is
David, could you hold on? People who still want to have some input on the bylaws, please send an email, add something to the chat. You can send an email to me or to David. I'll put my email here again. And please share your thoughts on them. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting discussion.
okay. The governance committee is the committee that has generally addressed issues like the bylaws. And this time, instead of having the bylaws be as comprehensive as they used to be, we are taking some of those issues and putting them into standing rules. And so what I would like to do is see if we can increase the membership of the bylaws committee, segue it into the governance committee, and then have the governance committee consider the election of officers, the standing rules, and the changes to the bylaws that are being suggested by the public as well as during this meeting, to see if we would like to change those bylaws to address these issues. So I would like to get participation from whoever would like to be on the governance committee during the next month. And so we could have some meetings and work on the election of officers, work on the standing rules for the community council. Do I see any participants, any volunteers? Great. Jeff?
Jeff.
Any others?
It's Jake. Sign me up.
Jake, great.
I also have a question. Do we have minutes of the previous meeting to approve tonight since we have a quorum?
No, we don't have minutes of the previous meeting. These are still ad hoc meetings, so we haven't yet formed the community council, and so we're not approving the bylaws the way we normally do.
Okay, I would just comment that for openness and transparency that we create minutes for these meetings. People know what's been on or happened in a rough sense.
Good point. Good point. And that's one of the reasons we're using the Webex format so that we can have a transcription of the meeting.
David, did you get Art volunteering?
Art, great.
Thank you.
And Steve, did you want to participate in the governance committee?
I'm not sure that I could be a formal member, but I'm happy to provide some input.
Okay.
I'm sort of pretty busy these days with other nonprofits.
Okay.
But I'm happy to help in a less formal sense.
Okay. And so I expect that the people who have been on the bylaws committee already would like to continue serving. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I see Raina Holtz out there. Hey, Raina.
Jim Dyer's had a question too.
Okay. Jim?
You're muted, Jim.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hey, Jim.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just said I don't want to drag the meeting out, so I'm happy to wait till the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Which will be when?
The next meeting, the next large meeting is going to be May 18th, which is the third Monday of the month, and it'll probably be a longer meeting, 7 to 9.
Should we have another one of these meetings to discuss bylaws between now and then?
Yes, the governance committee will be meeting again, and I don't believe we've set a meeting yet, but what I'd like to do is schedule a meeting perhaps as soon as next week.
Sounds good.
And I can pass that around by email to people who have indicated an interest in the governance committee.
David, I would like to move my work to the communications committee and
Okay.
not the governance committee for a while.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Okay. Are there any more issues that need to be addressed right now? Anything urgent?
Cheryl wants to know how will the organization be funded?
That's a good question. Right now, we don't have a source of funding other than contributions. And in the past, that's how the community council had been funded, by passing the hat and by seeking contributions and by fundraising. You know, we used to have a a booth at the Strawberry Festival or things like that in order to raise funds. It's not as much as the $10,000 that we got from the county, but on the other hand, we don't need the strings attached. So let's see, Cheryl, would you be interested in helping with the governance committee?
I would love to say yes, but I have my hands full with the chamber right now.
Oh, okay, okay.
As you're aware, we don't have an executive director, so we're now a fully volunteer organization.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's too bad. One thing, would you be able to maybe help out with fundraising issues?
I certainly can give my perspective, and I'm happy to be engaged. Obviously, being kind of the president of the chamber board, I'm very interested in what the community council is doing. So if you need my input from things, I'm happy to engage. But I also own 2 businesses and do the chamber work. So kind of
You
busy.
got your hands full. I hear you. I hear you. It's kind of funny. Before I had kids, I couldn't understand why more people didn't participate in the community council, you know, and then I had kids. It's like, oh my God, you know.
I don't have children, I have businesses. It's the same concept.
Yeah, same issue. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for participating tonight, though.
Absolutely. I'll try to be on these as much as possible because obviously I want to make sure that we're representing. The chamber's been doing a lot of the things that I think the community council will hopefully be helping support going forward, like the ferry issues and the winery issues and those types of things. So
for sure, I've got a long history with the ferry, and it's you know, the ferry advisory committee, where these people would be required by state statute to attend community meetings to get the input from the community, and they would come without notebooks. You know? So I feel your pain in terms of the ferries.
well, now I won't be commuting anyway because they closed the West Seattle Bridge for 2 years. So what difference does it make?
There you go.
Anyway, thank you very much for including me. I will be on the rest of these meetings, and if you need things from me as a representative for the businesses and or the chamber, I'm happy to pipe in.
That's great.
Thanks. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, with that in mind,
Hold on, Dan, go ahead.
okay. Jeff?
I do have, this is Dan Schuler. I have one more
Dan.
comment. For those of you who didn't hear me in one of the earlier meetings talk about this, I'd like to point out that in its past incarnation, the community council did use a number of electronic means to, or methods to do at least 2 polls and 1 actual election. We did an election of the executive board at one point. In fact, because Melvin and I kind of talked everybody into it. We and Roger, I think we talked everybody into doing ranked choice voting for one of the board meetings. And we did that both by ballot and the same thing with the surveys. We did both with ballot, paper ballots, and with online voting. And in those cases, we were able to track a little bit of security to discourage multiple votes. And we were able to do that electronically. So and that was with very little effort put into security. We didn't have to put in logins or anything. I would suggest that in the future, we do have a system where we have people either sign up in person at a real meeting, or we have some other method of proving that you're an actual islander before you can vote in electronic election. But we do have ways to do that. So I just wanted to make sure people know that those are definitely options.
Okay, that's good.
We have our ways.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, in one of the polls that we did, we were able to track that there was some unusual participation. Well, this was back, we did a transportation poll, and we were able to see, for example, that the K2 factory, when there were still employees there, were sort of overloading the system because they had all their people go in and vote, and we could tell that it was K2 doing it. So, and there was the unusual thing about that was that because it was a transportation poll, we wanted a lot of participation, so we asked if people wanted a bridge or not. And the only part of the participation that clearly did want a bridge were people who lived in Southworth but worked for K2. They wanted a bridge. So, and on the island, everybody else voted, and we got great participation. So that's a suggestion that if we put in a poll question about having a bridge, we'll get a lot of participation.
Right. Okay. And can we come up with a date right now for the next governance committee meeting? Jim Deers, you still there? How does next Monday, same time sound? Next Monday at say 7 o'clock? Okay, good. Okay,
Good.
let's do it then for next Monday at 7 o'clock, our first governance committee meeting. And Jeff, will you be able to do that and set up the WebEx for us?
I can do that. We can either use WebEx if we want to record it or use Zoom if we're not going to record.
Okay, let's talk about it between now and then.
What time?
Is 7 o'clock
7
better
p.m.
or 6 o'clock? I think 7 is okay.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Better.
which is better?
7.
7. Okay, good.
7 here.
Okay, 7 o'clock it'll be. Governance committee meeting, 7 o'clock next Monday. Thank you all for participating.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
You, it was
Put us
great.
together, Jeff.
All
What was
right.
that? Okay.
Thanks for pulling us together.
Jeff, yeah, thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Job.
Okay.
Okay,
Goodbye, all.
Bye.
bye.
Thank you.
David,
Yes.
before you leave, you have any thoughts, and I'm gonna have to hear them now, to prevent what happened the last time with errors and omissions and that whole scene? The board got scared, and you got thoughts how to
Well,
prevent.
we're not going to
future.
have